Hello and welcome to Insight. Today we have with us one of the most fearless journalists of our time. He has been the deputy editor of the India Today group. He is an astute political analyst and a very successful author. His latest bestseller is Savarkar, the man who could have prevented partition. Come join me and Mr. Uday Mahurkar, presently the Information Commissioner with the Government of India, as we discuss Savarkar's Hindutva, the partition, and good governance. Namaskar, Uday ji. It is such a privilege for me to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Uday ji, you have studied Savarkar's life in detail for many, many years. So let me start by asking you a few questions about him.
Sure.
What is the Hindutva that we see being freely used today? What is that sort of a Hindutva? Is it similar to the Hindutva that Savarkar had envisioned?
The Hindutva being practiced by a section of majority community is not entirely in tune with the Hindutva of Veer Savarkar. Veer Savarkar, the main element in Savarkar's Hindutva was nation first. Whatever you do, national interest is supreme. A national security also. For example, Veer Savarkar is the symbol of Hindutva in the country, always. Now, I'll cite one example. In 1939, when a group of Shias of Lucknow passed a resolution saying any Muslim slaughtering a cow will be seen as an enemy of Hindu-Muslim unity. Second part of the resolution was, that time there used to be a lot of communal clash when Hindus used to pass their processions from near the mosque. They said, we will implore the Muslims not to object to Hindu processions passing from near a mosque. Savarkar read this statement in newspapers at that time. He issued a public statement that I welcome this gesture of the Muslim community of Lucknow. And if such positive gestures based on true Hindu-Muslim unity, objective, keep on coming from the Muslims, then Hindu-Muslim unity is possible. Not only that, he wrote them a letter, appreciating, personal letter, whosoever the leader was at that time. And that he wrote that you have made such a genuine gesture that let me assure you, I will also implore Hindus not to pass processions deliberately from near the mosque to instigate the Muslims. Correct? So, this shows what was Savarkar's Hindutva. This shows what was his nationalism. Correct?
Absolutely.
And against that, if you see, because of the policies of the Congress, Muslim appeasement policies of the Congress, ultra-Wahhabism has increased in the country over the last 70 years. So, you see, you have to look at this whole problem in a very, very clinical way. There is a most radical faction in the Muslim community, which is ultra-Wahhabi, PFI and other groups. There is a less radical group in the Muslim community, which might comprise of certain moderate Wahhabis also. And there is a third group which wants to remain in the mainstream and which is totally moderate. So, you have to deal with them differently. You get my point? Yes. So, here what is happening is that the ultra-Wahhabis are getting a very fertile ground to recruit Muslims from the other two factions, the less radical and the moderate. Now, this is against national security. Today also in armed forces there are Muslims. I mean, most of them are doing quite well, I thought. Today in Kashmir, every 10 days there is one Muslim being killed by terrorists, Pakistan-backed terrorists. So while ultra-Wahhabism has increased over the last 70 years in a very big way, and the nation has to fight, because ultra-Wahhabis dream of Islamizing this country, So we have to fight with them, ideologically, even physically. The state has to fight with them, correct?
Absolutely.
But there is a significant section in the Muslim community which wants to remain in the mainstream, and I think we have to appreciate that. So that is my point. So Savarkar's was nation first. You cannot allow your instincts to take you over in such a way that it starts affecting national integrity and national unity. That is what is Savarkar, and that is what is the difference between Savarkar and a small section of ultra-nationalist Hindus. But again, let me add something here. This is also because of the result of years and years of Muslim appeasement by the Congress. There is an anger. You see, first your policies led to the partition of the country, which is Muslim appeasement. The single biggest factor behind India's partition was Muslim appeasement policies of the Congress. And then Congress continued with the same policies after independence. Correct. So there is an anger on the part of a section of Hindus, whereby they are not able to control their instincts. But I think they need to think in terms of national unity and national integrity. We cannot strengthen ultra-Wahhabism in this country.
Well said, Udayji, well said. So you'd say that Savarkar in essence had a firm belief in communal harmony because for him nation came first. That
Communal harmony based on equal terms. Because this whole Hindu-Muslim unity model in terms of communal harmony was Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost all these years. Savarkar says, if you want Hindu-Muslim unity, then both the sides should sacrifice. For the sake of votes, Congress created a model which was Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost. And you have to understand one thing. Religious reconciliation cannot come without self-introspection from both the sides. Here, a large part of the Muslim community take the issue of temples. Thousands and lakhs of temples were demolished during the medieval period. Then a section of Muslims forced partition on this country, which was partition of motherland for Hindus. And yet, you don't allow even 3 places of worship to the Hindus for 70 years. Ayodhya we have to get back through the courts, to the Supreme Court. What Muslims should have done is, they should have, after independence, and they were prepared. One more thing I want to tell you. After independence, almost the entire Muslim leadership was so scared that it was willing to offer a very large number of such places to Hindus, because they knew that they had forced partition on the country. If you look at the statements of Maulana Maududi, the founder of Jamaat Islami in 1954, when the anti-Ahmadiyya riots took place in Lahore, there was a committee set up under the then Chief Justice, I think retired Chief Justice Munir Ahmad, to go into the causes of the riots. So he interviewed many people, including Maududi, who was he was the person behind those riots. So he told Munir Ahmad that all non-Hindus or non-Muslims should be treated as second-class citizens in an Islamic country. Then he was asked by Munir Ahmad, then what about Hindus who are left behind in India, Muslims who are left behind in India? What about them? So I don't mind if they are treated as second-class citizens in India and even as untouchables. Then he tried to retract that statement after a few months. But still, what he said stands. He said, I would not have any objection to Indian government treating Muslims in whatever way it wanted, which amounts to the same as his earlier statement. So Muslims of this country cannot forget that Maulana Maududi, who is the chief, I would say, ideologue of radical Islam in the world, he had no objection to Muslims of this country being treated as second-class citizens. Just because Hindus have forgotten some of the old chapter, they cannot see that as a what you call a factor for for engaging in pan-Islamism, for that matter. And they were in themselves, if you compare Maududi's statement with the reaction of the Muslims soon after independence, when I told you that they were prepared to offer many more such places to the Hindus, correct? That matches. So they are also scared, correct? But now after 20, 30 years, 40 years, I mean, they started denying Ayodhya to us in 1980s. So I think how many? 30 years had passed? Correct? More than 30 years. So, I mean, this is a betrayal of Hindus, for that matter. And mind you one thing, every Muslim, whether he is radical, less radical, whether he is moderate, should know that out of the total Muslim votes cast in the 1945 national and provincial elections, the last elections before partition, out of the total Muslim votes cast, almost 87% went to Muslim League. Now, the voting at that time was very less. The voting of Muslims was 20% and the voting of Hindus was 25%. So, I will not apply pro rata 87% to all 100%, But still, one thing is very clear, majority of these Muslims of undivided India wanted partition. Nobody can deny that. And in that also, you can't overlook one thing, that in that election, Congress did well and Muslim League did badly in Northwest Frontier Province at that time. So, Northwest Frontier Province was still wanted to come with India. So, those Muslims who are left behind in India, in UP, Bihar, they were the ones who wanted Pakistan more than even people in today's Northwest Frontier Province or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area, as you call, of Pakistan.
But tell me something, coming back to Savarkar, when he spoke about communal harmony and he spoke about a united India, did he transform his views as time went on, or did those views remain like that? Second part of my question is, how come all these instances that you're talking about, including Savarkar's life and the aspects that you have brought out in your book, which we will talk about as we, further go into this discussion, how has it been forgotten?
What part?
The part that Savarkar's need for communal harmony, because that brought about a unified India, it's something that's not in people's imagination today. How has that been?
You see, he never used the word communal harmony. But that has become a term for furthering that Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost. He used to talk about national unity. He never used the term communal harmony, national unity. He was for national unity. Correct? Sometimes the language he used to speak was very harsh, and maybe Muslims might feel that it was harsh, but then he never deviated from his principle that independent India will have equal rights for all religions and all castes. He never deviated from that principle all through. On the contrary, he has expounded on this very elaborately. So you cannot go by a few sentences or few statements of his. Sometimes he used to be very, when temperatures were running high during in the mid 40s, maybe a few statements must have been, slightly very harsh, on Muslim community, though very justified. Correct? But he never deviated from the principle that in independent India, all castes and religions and communities will have equal rights.
In your book, you've also written about him being the father of national security. Is this the reason that you call him that? That his aim was just...
There are many, we have to put many things together to, I have to put many things together to explain to you, Yes. First part is his efforts to prevent partition, about which nobody knows. It's there on record, but nobody has paid attention, In 1937, when he was set free from Ratnagiri, where he was in internment, and he was free to join any party, correct? Subhash Chandra Bose, Achyutrao Patwardhan and S.M. Joshi, these three leaders of the Congress, they invited Savarkar to join Congress. But Savarkar refused, saying that the Congress has gone so far ahead on the path of Muslim appeasement that it is impossible for the party to retrace its steps. And he said to do Muslim appeasement at the cost of Hindu rights in Bharatvarsh is betrayal of the nation. And then he said, I would prefer to stand in the last row of true patriots than the first row of those who are betraying the nation in the name of patriotism. Correct? So Savarkar was the first person in 1937 to see that partition is coming. And there is all the ground to think. In 1930, Sir Muhammad Iqbal, the great poet who wrote Sara Jahan Se Achha but later on become a pan-Islamist. Very few Indians know about it. They sing his poems even today without realizing that he was the father of Pakistan in one sense. Even before Jinnah. In the 1930 session of Muslim League, he visualized today's Pakistan. He said, I see future homeland for Indian Muslims in Punjab, in Sindh, in northwest frontier province and Balochistan. He had visualized largely what you today see as Pakistan in 1930. It was an open statement, correct? In 32, an Indian Muslim from Jalandhar studying in Oxford called Rahmat Ali Chaudhary, he coined the word Pakistan of this future homeland of Indian Muslims. And it was Jinnah who gave shape to this vision. In 1936, 1 year before Savarkar was set free, a very important development happened which was a clear indication that things are moving in the direction of partition in future. Sindh, which was part of Mumbai province at that time, old Mumbai state, was detached from Mumbai state and made a separate province. Savarkar called it Anglo-Muslim League conspiracy. So Savarkar was the first person to see that things are moving in the direction of Pakistan because of the Muslim appeasement policies of the Congress. And thereafter he made a series of efforts. It's all there in my book. In 1944, I think 45 beginning, he was the chief architect of Akhand Hindustan Conference in Delhi, where all those, including non-political figures, intellectuals who were opposed to partition of this country. This was 3 years before Congress's 1942, 3 years after Congress's 1942 partition revolution or Pakistan resolution, which it agreed to. It gave the right to the provinces to the right of self-determination. If they didn't want to remain with India, they were free to do so. That is what the resolution said in 1942. Less than 3 years after that, Savarkar organized the Akhand Hindustan Conference in Delhi, where all those who were opposed to partition in Pakistan came together, including some of the greatest intellectuals of this country, Radha Kumar Mukherjee, the greatest historian of that time, Srinivasa Shastri, Ramanand Chatterjee, the editor of Modern Review, the India Today of that time. All these people came together and they said that Savarkar is the person who is opposing Pakistan. And we support Savarkar. Now I want to ask the leaders of Congress party today. None of these people were part of Hindu Mahasabha. Srinivas Shastri, Ramanand Chatterjee, Radha Kumar Mukherjee. All these people supported Pakistan, Savarkar. Even the great scientist Raman, he also supported Savarkar. So Savarkar's fight was for national unity. It was against radical Islamists. It was not against Muslim community. That nation has to understand.
But how is Udayji Savarkar's image been created or has transformed over a period of time where people have forgotten this and now he's seen as almost like a radical character in history?
The reason is that Savarkar is the father of nationalist ideology in this country. If you want to have a vision which is not blurred at all, you can see national interest through and through. And whether it is, where it is getting negatively affected, then you have to read and understand Savarkar. And the radical Muslims and radical Christians who believe in conversion, they know that if Savarkar's vision spreads in the Hindu community, then their job is over. Therefore, the reason to vilify, defame and project Savarkar as a villain. They have understood Savarkar better than us. Those who dream of India becoming an Islamic country, those who believe in conversion, apart from the communists, all those who want to survive on a divided India, for them Savarkar is the biggest villain because he is the ultimate symbol of India's unity and integrity. That is what our book says. And by giving a series of examples.
So what would you think that Savarkar today would look at this sort of ultra aggression that is happening in the name of nationalism? What would Savarkar's lens be?
Savarkar would control them. Savarkar would hate them. As I told you, this is happening because of years and years of Muslim appeasement. Mind you, we can't forget that. And today also, radical Islamists are doing whatever they want. Today, Maulvis are speaking against Hinduism, Hindu religion and Hindus. Openly. Ultra-Wahhabi Maulvis particularly. But the media is not showing it. That is also a provocation. What an average Hindu, ultra-nationalist Hindu thinks. He thinks that lakhs and thousands and lakhs of temples were demolished during the medieval period. Then you partitioned this country and took Pakistan. And then you are doing the same thing in independent India. Not giving back even those 3 places of worship, Ayodhya, Kashi and Mathura. So Savarkar maybe would have told them to control their instincts.
Rightly so.
Savarkar would have told them to control their instincts. He would not have hated them or scolded them. He would have urged them, appealed to them to control their instincts in the larger national interest.
So, when we talk about the
And Chanakya Niti also demands that. You see, Chanakya Niti also says that those people, they may belong to any religion, as I interpret it. If they want to remain in the mainstream and they are not doing things which are against national interest, there is no point in opposing them, So we have to target the right people. Our fight is against radical Muslims. The fight of nationalist India is against radical Muslims, radical Islamic movement. It is not against entire Muslim community. That we have to understand.
So then if, let's say, hypothetically, if Savarkar's vision had not been neglected, and it has been, what is the difference that we would have seen in terms of our national security and national unity?
No. You see, Savarkar, if you look at it, if I expound further on this, Savarkar predicted about 80 to 60 years ago all the problems India has faced on the national security front in the last 70 years. Correct? So, had we followed Savarkar's vision, we would have been easily the superpower today. And mind you one thing, we take great pride in saying that we will become Vishwaguru. You can't become a Vishwaguru before, you have to become a military superpower. Then and then you can become a Vishwaguru. So, what was Savarkar's vision? Savarkar's vision was that on the global stage, military strength is the ultimate decider of a nation's greatness. What in effect he is saying? You might be culturally great, you want to be economically great, but then you cannot make yourself acceptable to the entire world without military strength. And the biggest example of that is Taliban. Taliban has forced America to leave Afghanistan. Correct? However, in Xinjiang province, which is next to Afghanistan, China commits daily atrocities on the Uyghur Muslims of Xinjiang. But Taliban doesn't have the guts to take on China. Imagine Taliban, which claims to be the protector of radical Islam across the globe, doesn't have the guts to take on China because China is next door with all its might, and more than might, with all its ruthlessness, which is more than America. China's ruthlessness is much more than America. The way it has put down the Uyghur Muslims, they are not allowed to read Quran. They are kept in camps. They are not allowed to wear Muslim cap. So, because China's strength is such, and that ruthlessness, even Taliban is scared. So, can you imagine in India, even the slightest provocation to a Muslim, sometimes there is no provocation, that becomes a debate in Middle East on the Nupur Sharma issue. Correct? And look at China. There is no debate on the plight of Uyghur Muslims in Middle East. Same countries. So you need that military strength. You need that ruthlessness. And mind you, Savarkar, let me elaborate on his vision further. After saying all this, what he says on the last page of his book Hindutva, he says a day will come when the world will have to face the might of India and Hindus. Correct? But in that he defines, how will India behave with those people who accept its superiority? He says the dealing terms of India at that stage, when it becomes a superpower or a Vishwaguru and a Vishwaguru, won't be different from what has been said in Gita or what has been preached by Buddha. So, in fact, he talks about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in the end. So, how I interpret it? I look at it this way. I will try to interpret it on the principle of complete non-violence. He used to say complete non-violence is a sin. Anybody can devour you. So, you need violence to bring non-violence, to defeat the demons. Get my point? So, same logic applies when it talks about India becoming a superpower. And India becoming a superpower will be a big thing for humanity. You see, today, the way developed nations exploit smaller nations, underdeveloped nations, the way superpowers exploit, see the way African countries are being exploited by the superpowers of today. India would treat them as one large family. So, India becoming a superpower will be a very big development for humanity, Absolutely. That is what is Savarkar's vision.
Absolutely agreed on that. I think India can play a real balancing act between the western side of the world and the eastern side of the world.
And secondly, the way some of these Islamic countries, the African countries are being exploited by superpowers, my goodness. Absolutely. It is total exploitation of their economy, of their resources. Absolutely. India won't do it. Yeah. The worst government of India won't do that, indulge in such things,
Absolutely, and I think the people of India will reject it.
Because we believe in Gita.
Absolutely. It's not
we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And Savarkar also spoke the same thing,
Udayji, you've also, as we are coming to the end of this interview, let me bring your focus to the two books that you've written about Prime Minister Modi. You have understood this government very well, seen it very closely. There's no doubt that this government is very, very different from all the previous governments that we've had.
Absolutely.
And Prime Minister Modi has brought about changes that we didn't think we would see in our lifetimes. Having said that, how do you think this government led by Prime Minister Modi accomplished or is on their way of accomplishing the values that Savarkar held, especially in terms of nation first and securing India?
No, you see, our introduction, the introduction in our book is titled Dawn of the Savarkar Era. So, what is Dawn of the Savarkar Era? Dawn of the Savarkar Era is removal of 370, correct? uh, the doors of Ayodhya temple being opened. Northeast region of this country being treated as part of mainstream India for the first time. For the first time. Very big thing, because you see, I remember I have covered Prime Minister Modi since 1987, since my days as a reporter with Indian Express, and then soon with India Today. You know, I joined India Today in 1987. I remember his pitch during the first Lok Sabha election which he won, 1914. And I have covered his campaigning from 12 to 13 to 14, that 1 year, He used to always say that we want uniform development. Mother India's one part remains prosperous, which is the West, and the East remains backward. India cannot become a great nation. From day one, his vision was clear that East is backward and we need to concentrate on East, and he has lived by his word. The kind of development he has brought to the eastern side of this country is unparalleled and unimaginable. Things happening in Northeast are unimaginable. And you see, people are appreciating it.
But would you say that, this government being led by Prime Minister Modi and his values being very clear about transparency, accountability, is what has encouraged leadership like this to come up in areas where we couldn't ever imagine leadership like this?
I think so. And he has picked up the right leaders, no? I mean, you see, if you say Maharashtra had this Brahmin versus Maratha thing, encouraged by divisive ideologies, putting one Hindu section against another, And there was, after the Gandhi murder, certain elements from non-Muslim sections or non-Brahmin sections, they made it a habit of abusing Brahmins, all Brahmins. And he had the guts to make Devendra Fadnavis the chief minister. Very big thing. So he thinks in terms of national unity. Absolutely. And transparency and accountability, he has worked wonders. My 2 books on him. First one was Center Stage, Inside the Narendra Modi Model of Governance, published 1 year before Mr. Modi became the Prime Minister, 1 month before Mr. Modi became the Prime Minister, on his 13 years as Chief Minister in Gujarat. And my second book on his 3 years as Prime Minister encapsulates the kind of transparency he has brought by using technology, by his commitment, by reshuffling the bureaucracy, by creating a new culture in the bureaucracy. And mind you, he has brought this change with the same tools. That was available. Same tools. For example, there is a portal called GEM of the Ministry of Commerce, which has brought the greater transparency in procurement of government material. Procurement by government agencies and ministries and departments, correct? Now, when I did a story on GEM, before I became commissioner, as a journalist, I found that this idea was there from 2013 onwards, 12 onwards. There are no takers. When Modi came, the people who were there who wanted to implement this kind of a vision, And what is GEM? Products brought through GEM are 10% cheaper than Amazon and Flipkart. And now that they have opened it for even private people, anybody can go to GEM and buy whatever he wants, except I think aircrafts, defense equipment, everything is available through GEM. You want to buy a car, you can do it. So the level and basically this whole thing called direct benefit transfer, it is a revolution in the history of this country, you know. And how he went about. DBT without bank accounts has no meaning. Direct benefit transfer. Government says that we will transfer the amount to you. What is that DBT? DBT is that government owes you money, has to give you some money. You might be a laborer, you might be a businessman, you might be a contractor. So you don't have to go to the office to collect the check and grease the palms of the clerk or the officer, section officer, to get that check, you know. So we will give you money in your bank account. But there are only 58% people had bank accounts when Mr. Modi came. He has opened over 42 crore bank accounts.
And we saw the benefit of that.
No, his popularity today is because of this transparency.
Absolutely. And the wonder of the
And one more thing, no minister has been involved in a scam. Not a single scandal in 7 years, unheard in the history of this country. So transparency and accountability has worked wonders. Even if you talk about reforms, there also he has worked wonders. Just see defense sector. The other day I was with General Ashok Malik, Chief of Army Staff, when Kargil happened. I was there with him at the airport, and he was very happy about the fact that in 2014, about 70% of the defense equipment was being imported. Today, this percentage has gone down to below 50. So, there is a commitment to national good in whatever this government is doing, this Prime Minister is doing particularly. That you can see, that commitment to national good.
Absolutely.
And one more thing I want to say. You see, this Muslim community as a whole has been very critical of Modi government over the last about 2-3 years, you know. But let me tell you one thing. They must ask themselves, is there any discrimination when it comes to implementing pro-people policies? There is no discrimination. Even Yogi Adityanath ji, who is the symbol of saffron Hindutva, even there is no discrimination when it comes to implementation of policies. I think that is the biggest yardstick if you want to know whether Muslims of this country are wronged or not. And I think the Muslim nations also should use the same yardstick. They should maybe conduct a survey of their own and find out, is there a discrimination when it comes to implementing pro-people policies at the ground level?
Very well said, Udayji. Absolutely. Thank you. On that note, Udayji, it was such a privilege to have you.
Thank you so much.
And
It was a pleasure to be here.
and
this interview.
I hope we can do this again and have you again on Insight very soon.
Certainly.
Maybe in your next book. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was a crystal clear masterclass on Savarkar and his idea of national unity, an idea that has been misinterpreted by many. Yet it remains a silent guiding force for those who hold our nation first. Thank you for watching us. Till next time.